So with housekeeping out of the way, let me hand this off to Gina to get us started. Gina, it's all yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for that warm welcome, Howard. I appreciate that. Um, Everyone can see hopefully my screen. Howard, does that look good? Just making sure.
Yes, it does.
Fantastic. Just to reiterate, we welcome all of you to be chatting in the chat. Put in your LinkedIn profile link. I put mine in there. Where are you dialing in from? The reason for the Path to Next series is not just to share knowledge and wisdom that will help you progress in your job search and move into the next thing, whatever that is, but it's also to create community. And so for the past, 12 sessions, that's what we have been working really hard to do. Today, I'm going to be speaking about the career thread, how to explain complicated career stories. This is based on the work of chapter 3 of my book that just came out in September called Qualified Isn't Enough. And when we get toward the end of the presentation, I'll actually drop screen sharing this and show you the pages in the book where all of the detail of the things that I'm going to talk about that you can tease out from your career story. It's all there in a list that you can actually take advantage of and activate your career thread. So hopefully you will find that useful. So today's agenda is simple, but it is jam-packed full of information. I will pause every so often and I will be looking at the Q&A specifically to see if we have questions, and I'll rely on you, Howard, if I'm falling behind on that. So we're going to talk about what is a career through line? Why do you need to create one? And then the most important thing about attending sessions like this is not to gather tips. If you're a job seeker consuming tons and tons of content, you're reading about how to tweak your resume and all of that stuff, you're going to feel like you're getting traction initially, but you need to activate with frameworks. And so that's what I'm sharing with you today, are frameworks that you can actually use if you choose. I will also give you a real life case study from someone I worked with this year that will give you a mental model of what your career thread and story could look like. So if you are new to the Path to Next series, just a little bit about me. I'm a former Intel alum. I worked at Intel for about 10 years. I went from recruiting in Fabs 4, 5, and D1 in Oregon to earning a master's degree and becoming an HR business partner for the server group, supporting Abhi Talwalkar back in the day. And I also ran the intern program. I hired 500 interns in 1 year. Since then, I went to work for an executive search firm called Talents Group. The CEO of Talents Group is also an alum. It's Sherry Kidsawan. So I've led executive searches, and I know what it's like to be on the other side of the table as a recruiter, watching people go through the interview process. I see what works. I see what hasn't worked and what hurts people in getting advanced in the interview process. And since then, over the past 7 years or so, I have developed Career Velocity, which is a 9-step model to help job seekers move through and activate a job search that actually works. So it's built all on frameworks and not tips. So I have a number of credentials on the slide. I won't read all of those to you because I want to get right into it. So I would love for everyone to take a quick sip of their caffeine, hopefully that they have, and answer this question in the chat. Why do some candidates get overlooked? Let's see that in the chat. Why do some candidates get overlooked? There's a lot of reasons. Why do you think candidates are getting overlooked? Let's communicate together here. Stigma with disability, not differentiated, late submittal. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Seen as too old. So ageism, I'm going to see ageism, I think, a lot. Overqualified. Maybe no network or connections. An uninteresting resume. Ageism. No humans involved. It's easy to get overlooked when we think machines are doing the thinking on the other side. Absolutely. There are so many reasons that candidates get overlooked. Perfectly qualified candidates. That's the reason for the title of my book. You can be perfectly qualified, but not seen and not heard. And so one of the things that I want to address today that ties to the career thread is the rambling candidate. And in the first 2 paragraphs of my book, in the introduction, I talk about this story where I was interviewing a very mature professional who was interviewing for a CEO position. And I asked him the question all of you will get asked multiple times through your career transition journey. And so what I asked him was, I said, we have an hour. I have 8 skill-based questions to ask you so that I can compare you to other candidates to see who I'm going to keep moving through the process. And I was the one working with the board of directors, making those decisions and talking with them. And this man, when I asked, tell me a little bit about yourself, and please tell me in under 5 minutes so we can get through the rest of the questions. And this man kept talking for 20 minutes. It made such an impression on me that I created the first part of Career Velocity in developing your story. And part 3 of 5 in telling your story is unraveling your career thread. So it makes sense to you, and then you can cherry pick the things that are most important to your listener, depending on who you're speaking with. So one thing I want to address as well is resumes aren't cutting it these days. Applying online to job boards, through job boards, spray and pray, apply, 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 and hoping that you're going to get that call back. We really know that it's probably less than 2% callbacks. I had Steve Dalton on a few sessions ago, and what he says in his 2-hour job search is if you're getting 5% callbacks applying online, keep doing what you're doing. But if you're not, you need to take a different approach. And one thing about elevator pitches, you probably have heard through your journey, you need to get your elevator pitch together. And yes, we all need an elevator pitch. We're standing at a cocktail party or we jump on an elevator and we need 90 seconds of like, what do you do? And we need to make it kind of interesting so people feel engaged. That is not the answer to tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself is the thread, the themes and patterns that are part of your career journey that you need to cherry pick from to activate a discussion with the recruiter or the hiring manager when they ask you this question. So we're going to get into the detail of what that actually means. We want you to create flexible storytelling so that you can connect the dots for the listener based on what you think they most need to know about you. The hardest thing for people to get their heads around is it's not the whole story. It's not, I was born in Arizona and here I am today and we talk for 20 minutes. It's the most relevant things within the context of what that company is trying to solve. What problems are they solving and what stories can you share that connect those dots for the listener that make them want to keep talking with you specifically? So another question for you, put your fingers on the keyboard. What do you think the real problem is with our ability to tell our stories? What's the problem? What's holding you back? Or when you talk with other people who are networking, what do you see as some of the problem in telling our stories? All right, I'm checking the chat, not the Q&A for this one. So what is the real problem with our ability to tell our stories? I'm going to give you my opinion here in just a moment. We don't know what to say and how to present ourselves in a concise manner. Nailed it. Nailed it. Not succinct. The audience changes every time. Yes. Stigma. Sometimes it's difficult to sell ourselves. It's hard to talk about myself. Yes. Difficulty speaking about our accomplishments. All of those, such good responses. Thank you so much. All of those things can be true. So the challenge with telling our stories, and back to that elevator pitch, when we build an elevator pitch, we are reduced to feeling like we have to sell ourselves. That's the word pitch. But what if we think about it as the themes and patterns of our career, drawing together that thread that makes sense for the people who are listening to us? So I want you to have a shift in the way that you think about elevator pitch. In fact, in the last 2 months on the Forbes Coaches Council, I wrote an article called Your Elevator Pitch May Be Costing You Opportunities. And the reason I wrote that article is because I believe the tell me about yourself narrative is a much more powerful anchor in when we start telling our stories. So some of the reasons why it's so hard to tell our stories is we know what we did. We feel it in our bones. We've got it in our head. We've gone through it in our resume. but we haven't attached why we've made the decisions in our career, and then how we have gone about doing what we do best. So we're missing context, we're missing relevancy for those decision makers, and a lot of times we skip over the impact that we made. So important. So especially at Intel, we were all trained on competency-based, skill-based interviewing, behavioral interviewing. We are looking for people's impact. What was the result? And so this is where we need to get with our storytelling. So many of you, if you've been with us before in the Path to Next series, you've seen this model. This is the career velocity model. And most of us, when we're laid off or we start a job search, what is all the advice we get? We are told, go get your resume together, polish up your LinkedIn profile, and then start networking. Get on your networking horse and go ride it. But the challenge here is a lot of times people have misfires because they haven't gotten their stories together. And so you'll go and have those informational conversations. You're hoping to get referred, but you're not crisp and clear about your target. And the people that are listening don't know who to refer you to or how or what you do, but they will politely nod and behave as though they understand. I've worked with a couple of Intel people this year who are generally in the mature stages of their career development. They have held multiple roles over 20 years at Intel, and a lot of times funding gets taken away, we get moved into a new job, we don't have a lot of results to account for, and we could be applying for 3 different kinds of job titles. That is confusing to audiences. When the 2 people that I have been working with started to fine tune and be more specific with the people that could refer them, they started getting more referrals and more conversations. One just recently landed at a competitor where the job was newly created and he got to step into a role in the middle of an ecosystem where he can have a huge impact. But he had to be clear on that story first. So starting with networking can be very challenging if you're not ready to tell your story. So what you want to do is you want to start at the bottom of this triangle and get that foundation. You need to figure out, what are your unique differentiators? What's your leadership approach? What's the career thread and the themes of your career? What impact and results do you have from your career data vault? And how are you going to answer, tell me about yourself? All right, so today we're going to focus specifically on the career story, the career thread. We have covered some of the other aspects in the Path to Next series, but this is going to be hyper focused. So your resume is a receipt, but your through line is the story that you're telling, and you need to do it in what I say 3 to 5 minutes. If you're talking more than 5 minutes, you risk losing the attention of the people listening to you. This is a quote I absolutely love related to this topic. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, which is the reason for going back and really looking at the reasons for the career transitions. What motivated you to move from one job to another? What are those themes? I'm going to give you some very specific ideas about how you tease this out. So we want to take what I call we're coming off of Halloween, a Frankenstein story that's kind of convoluted for you to tell, and get it streamlined so that you can connect the dots for the listener. So what is the career through line? Something that you can read much more about in chapter 3 of my book. Again, I'm going to pull up a page from that so you can see all the detail that's in there to tease this out. But I call the career thread a cohesive thread that runs through your roles, through your choices, and the things that motivated you. This is going to add heft to your interview stories as well. So a quote from the book: your story's power lies in how you integrate your experiences, your strengths, your values, your leadership approach, and your career highlights into a cohesive narrative. And the reason why this matters is we want you to build up that confidence. And we want you to build a coherent story that makes that storytelling stickier for your audience. One of my friends, Kathy Armias, she is a marketing and branding expert. She is a TEDx trainer, a masterful speaker. And what she says is your stories come from you, but they are for them, for your audience. So when you're telling those stories, remember, you're trying to activate people. You're trying to get them interested in you. So you need to be thinking about what they need to know about you. I love that quote. So we're going to go through the uncovering the thread, which is a 4-step process. But what I'd like to do first is take a quick look and see, Howard, my chat is buried, and I'm just wondering if we have any Q&A yet. I'm going to go try to grab my Q&A box.
I do not see any Q&A
Okay,
yet.
no problem. I don't either, but I pulled the box up, so that is good. We may activate some questions after we start getting into the details. So let's go through this 4-step process. If you have a notepad or you have a Word or Google Doc up, you may want to take a couple of notes.
Hey, Gina,
So,
excuse me.
yes.
Did you want to do any polling before we get into this?
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yes, Michael, would you like to help us with the poll? And you can feel free to unmute and jump
Absolutely.
in. All right,
Let me
let's do
launch
that. We
this.
want to know who's in the audience.
Okay, launched.
Okay, so folks, we are curious. This is our 12th session, believe it or not. And yes, we do have Baker's Dozen coming in January, as Howard was saying. But we'd really love to know, who's here today. Are you currently in the market for a new position? If you could answer yes or no in the poll. And then the second thing is, if you are in the market for a new position, how long have you been looking? 0 to 3 months, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, or 10 plus? You can answer NA if you are not a job seeker, but you're here because you just love the path to next series.
What's not to love?
I try to make it lively, Howard, keeps them coming back, right?
You certainly do. And by the way, I mean, a lot of people are here, maybe not because they're immediately in the market, but given today's environment and people's aspirations for new roles and advancing their career, they may be soon. So having this in your back pocket is never a bad thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Michael, are we getting some answers? I'm
Oh
not seeing.
yeah,
Oh,
let
okay.
me end the poll. We're teetered out here.
Super. I'll let you want to tell us what those results are?
Yeah, I'm showing the results now.
Okay.
You should see them. So 86% said yes,
Mm-hmm.
they were looking for a job, and 36% are at the beginning days of it, so 0 to 3 months, and then 27%, 4 to 6, and then 20% at 10 plus months.
Wow. Okay. So for those of you who are at the beginning of your job search process, I cannot emphasize enough that you must get a strategy together. You must look at your all the moving parts and not starting with spray and praying. You need to get your story together. So this is especially important for you. For those who are on that upper end and you're feeling very stuck, if you reflect on your job search activities and you look at where you spend most of your time, that could help you unlock where you need to be spending your time. I'm seeing 2 questions. My story involves a lot of layoffs. I never left a job voluntarily. How do I make that a positive part of my story? Nicole, this is absolutely a story that a lot of people have, especially coming through the pandemic. And I would say that those who have worked at Intel and been moved from project to project every 18 months to 2 years because of defunding or something else, you can find the gold in every story. There are even ways to put a positive spin on when a person has been fired, which I actually address in my book as well. So it's really about honesty and transparency. I was working on these various things. Here's all the things that I was doing to do my part in a project or a role. And then here are the circumstances for the change. And being clear, crisp, and not over talking or over compensating, talking about the actual layoff. So I hope that helps answer it just kind of in a nutshell. But so many people have this challenge coming out of the pandemic. There's been so many layoffs. You are not alone. And most recruiters and hiring managers understand that. There are some people who will be biased about short stints. But for the most part, if you have a reasonable story to tell, people can get over it. Okay. Let's see. I've got Michael. How do we address years-long medical leaves? Should we even address them? I think that this is just my opinion. You can ask other people their opinion as well. I think I would stay away from specifics about medical issues because you don't want to put bias into the minds of the people who are interviewing you. Because one of the things that is protected, a protected class, are disabilities and medical issues. So I would steer clear of specifics on that and focus on the positives of what it is and the value you bring to an organization and how you have impact. And I'm hoping, Michael, that today what we talk about will be helpful in that regard. Let's see, I have another one, and then I'm going to keep moving with the presentation, then come back. Elizabeth, how do you express desire for part-time work with a positive twist? I think expressing positivity with any job that we're excited about can be electric. So, it may be challenging if if a company has a full-time role open and that's what they have budget for and that's what they want out of an individual. So my advice is if you are spending more time networking and getting referrals for specifically what it is that you want to do and how you want to do it, you'll be far greater served than just applying to full-time roles and expecting that they love you so much that they're willing to do part-time. So again, networking, referrals, and clarity about the value you bring even in a part-time capacity. So I hope that's helpful. All right, so I'm going to keep going with some of the content, and then I'm going to come back because I love that people are giving me questions, and I love that you're all here with me. So there's a 4-step career thread process. And again, I plan on screen sharing 1 to 2 pages of my book so you can kind of see all the detail behind it. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to gather all your information so you have it all in one spot. The second thing you're going to do is reflect and create bullet points about each of the jobs that you've had in your career. And this is a way to build a repository for your story. The third thing you'll do is identify the themes and the patterns. This is one of my favorite parts of career velocity. Going back and working with people and understanding the entire story, where they started, the origin story. Sometimes there's things in people's early career that influence all their decisions going forward. You need to unpack that and figure out if there's something interesting at the beginning, or maybe it's something in the college age range, or maybe it's some time in your early career. We all have things that we did or happened to us that created the reasons for our movement. Finding that thread is what we're after. And then you will draft a narrative. When I'm working with my coaching clients, I'm doing a 2-hour download of their whole story and typing it out. And then I'm streamlining that and I'm picking out the themes and patterns. And then I'm reading that back with people. And then we're collaborating on what the themes and patterns might be as they start to develop the answer to tell me about yourself. This is something that you can do for yourself. And I recommend doing it before you network so you understand what your themes and patterns are. So as far as gathering everything, I have a few things that I have pulled up to explain like what it is that you will be gathering for yourself. So you want to gather things like your resume, your current resume, past resumes. You want to gather any kudos or testimonials, recommendations. One of my favorite places to gather information is if you kept your monthly, quarterly, or annual reviews. There is gold there because whatever you got reviewed on and rewarded for is where a lot of your impact is, right? So these are the things that you need to be gathering. Then what you're going to do is you are going to reflect and then chronicle out your journey. Some of the reflection questions that you will be asking yourself to chronicle out your journey, and you can literally just cut and paste all this from my book and then like use that as a template, and you just keep going job after job after job. So what is the company you work for? What was your job title? How did you land the job? Were you promoted? Were you tapped on the shoulder? Did you apply? Etc. What were you hired to do? What were the greatest challenges of that job? Did you lead a team? What functional areas reported up into you if you did have a team? And what were some of your learnings? When I ask my clients, well, what did you learn here? Now I start to listen for skill development. What broadened in their toolkit? These are all the things that you're accumulating over time. Another question to ask yourself is, what were you proud of? What were the main accomplishments as you did that job? So what you want to do is reflect and go through this process with all of your jobs so you can start to pick out those themes. And then what you will do, and I have this framework in chapter 5 of my book, and it's helping you take that career thread and answer, tell me about yourself. I call it the 3/3 framework because you can see here there are 3 columns. If you have a very complicated story, you might want 4 columns. So what you want to do is figure out, what were you doing before college? Is there anything before college that actually enhances your story and explains your why you've done what you've done, and what has motivated you throughout your career? If there's not a lot of juice there, you are not talking about that in the tell me about yourself narrative. Then you're going to look at your education choices. So, did you get advanced degrees? When did you get them? I've worked with a lot of mature professionals who will get that MBA or master's after they've started their careers. Well, why did they make that choice? And what doors did it open for them? Did they change majors? Why? What happened there? And then the next thing is, what was happening in your early career all the way to now? So there's these pieces that you're going to be putting together. Where have you been? And how does it thread to where you are going? And then you are going to ask yourself questions like this. Why did you leave each role? And that's a great one to be asking yourself, especially if you have a question like, ooh, what if I've been laid off multiple times? Well, maybe part of your story is you fearlessly started a job with a company that was a startup trying to get funding and they didn't get the funding, for example. So maybe the positive spin on that is that you're fearless to try new things. That could be part of your storytelling. So what were you most proud of? And then did you have people that mentored you or saw something in you and promoted you or advocated for you? So there's these things that help make your story juicy. So when we pull together our career thread, we're not just looking for resume facts. We're looking for what's motivating you, the decisions you made, and the things that shaped your professional identity so that you can infuse that into your branding, your resume, your LinkedIn profile, into your interview stories, how you talk about yourself. And if you're not quite ready to do that, you will want to go through this exercise. So then you will identify the themes and patterns. And the reason why I like to lay the story out from top to bottom, I do it on a big Word document, type out all of the story for my client, is go through and go, oh, I see you got promoted multiple times, or oh, I see that you step into situations where you're constantly fixing a broken organization. What are those themes for you that are uniquely your story? Then you're going to write your narrative. And this is challenging, but so rewarding. You're going to write this out. You're not sharing it with anyone. You're not emailing anyone. You're not going to send it to a recruiter. Please do not send it out. This is for you to figure out what it is that you're going to say. And you may even be able to use parts of it to help update your LinkedIn about summary as well. But I would not cut and paste that and put that out for public consumption. But what you're kind of going after is when you answer, tell me about yourself, you could start with this. Across my career, the consistent themes or patterns have been what? I mostly get promoted into my roles, or I ... This is what we're after here. So before I head into a case study, which is so good, it's so juicy, I'm going to take a look at some of the questions. Let's see. We've got general comment. The reason I'm not saying stigma very strongly is that okay, so Gregory, if you have a specific question, let me know. We need on-topic career thread questions, and I'm happy to help. I have very diverse background from engineering to program management, business development, marketing, leadership development. I love that. I see this as a strength as I can wear multiple hats and deliver broad value. How do I leverage this as a strength, but focus on what jobs to search for? This is the question of the year, I feel like. So what you need to do in this case, if you have worn many hats and you can do many things, and as I say, you may be a Swiss Army knife full of tools. We've talked about that in the Path to Next series, is you must be clear on what your sharp tools are depending on who you're speaking with. So if you sit down and have a networking conversation with a former colleague who's perfectly willing and able to refer you, but you're not going into the conversation with, here are the 3 things that I am focused on. I can do this, this, and this really well, but not the whole toolkit, not all 5 to 7 or 8 things that you could do all the hat. Oh, I could do marketing and I could be an ops leader and I could. You will definitely confuse your audience and they won't be able to refer you unless they are like super close to you and completely get you and they're great communicators. You cannot leave it to chance. You can't have wishful thinking that people will guess how great you are. You need to do your research, find out what those companies need the most, and position your sharp tools to answer and solve that problem. And that is the way to get traction. And that is the way I've seen people get traction in my practice. If you spend a lot of time talking about all the tools with people, your job search may drag on for months and months and months. So you've got to get that sharp tool together. The career thread and story is part of that process. I hope that was helpful, Sheba. Kamala, how do you thread a year or break in career after decades of job for caregiving and winding down? Thread a year of break. So if a person has had a career break, I think it's okay to say, I had a career break where I was caregiving for people. There's a lot, I'm in my mid 50s. You know, some of my caregiving might be launching kids to college, or it might be caring for aging parents. It could be all kinds of things that we're doing for caregiving, and we don't need to give all the detail to make a great story out of it. So again, coming off the pandemic, we have gotten more and more used to people having breaks for a variety of reasons. Now, what I will say, and this is a topic for another time with LinkedIn gurus that we can bring back to the party, but having a career break as your last job on LinkedIn could be harming you because recruiters are actively looking for people who are job seeking, who tie to the job title of what they're looking for. That's why they pay the big bucks for recruiter tools and all those drop down menus. So if you have career break and caregiver, you're not being sought after for being a caregiver, and so you will rank lower in searches. So you need to figure out some way to avoid that trap. So I hope that was helpful. Let's see, Michael, when a job listing requires a college degree, oh, how do you overcome that when you don't have one, but have a decade of experience, proven success that make you at least as qualified? Thank you, Michael, for this fantastic question. I'm working with a client right now, and we are having our 3rd engagement. And you might be thinking, gosh, Gina, why would he need you 3 times? I'll explain. We started working together about 7 years or so ago when I was first developing my coaching program. And the reason why we worked together is because he was building computers in his garage and went right into an IT career and did not get a college degree. He was a mid-level director at a big company that we all know, but he came to me because he couldn't get through the applicant tracking system if recruiters were putting degree as a requirement. I think that is getting less and less today, but you can't count on that. So he knew he was not going to be successful applying online. So we worked together and he did all of this storytelling, positioning, and he is one of the most successful people doing cold outreach and getting conversations that I've ever seen. Let's flash forward. He lands at a big global company as a senior leader. 2 years later, he calls me back and says, hey, I need to work together because there's a VP opening and I would like your help doing the interview prep. He wins the VP job. Then he just called me in the past year and said, guess what? I was part of making a strategic decision to shut my division down. And I was able to carry all my people to the very last day except for 2. And now I've worked myself out of a job. We are working together to, again, position him and get that energy around the cold calling and the referrals, et cetera, because applicant tracking systems, if you don't have a degree, you may have gone to school, that's cool, but if you can't say I have a degree and you don't want to fib about it, you will need to go around the applicant tracking system and get referrals. So I hope that that was an energizing story. And as I work with him, he is getting more referrals than anyone I have ever worked with. He's incredible. You have to work really hard to get those referrals. All right, let's see. Cynthia, thank you for asking. You can get my book on Amazon or anywhere online books are sold. Amazon qualified isn't enough. Thank you for asking, and I'll have a QR code out later. Let's do this case study because it is juicy. This is about, it's anonymized, Kayla. This is someone I worked with this year. And here's what she could say about herself. She's a customer-centric business and operations leader with deep expertise in sales, marketing, retail, and wholesale across 5 industries. Okay. So I yawn and say, okay, what else do you got? Okay, tick, 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 tick. All of these things off of a list. Okay, we're getting into the career thread and how to make Kayla's story juicy. So Kayla and I went through the whole career thread process, teasing out what was happening in her early career, teasing what was happening in her mid-career, and then what she was doing in the last, 5+ years. Kayla has one of the most complicated career stories I have ever helped unravel. And I'm going to share with you what that hot mess funneled into for her storytelling. And when you see this slide, you might think, oh my goodness, that's a hot mess. But let me tell you, it went from a crazy story to something that was very streamlined that she understands and she knows exactly what she's going to be talking about going forward. So instead of taking you through a build slide, because we don't have time for that, I am showing you the final slide that I just presented at the National Resume Writers Association conference. And I took my colleagues through this process where they actually were creating a little mini thread for themselves and sharing that. So we walked through this process. For Kayla, in her early career, as you see in red, these are some of the themes that we were picking out from her career. She started her career at Nordstrom before she had a degree, and she has services selling in her bones. She is a customer-facing person who does everything. We know what those Nordstrom people are like. So this is her foundation. She earns an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, becomes a senior leader managing teams. Then she moves into operations leadership at another job, managing 20 simultaneous commercial and residential projects. She moves into a handbag and a leather goods company where she's a marketing manager and a retail store GM where she has her first P&L. And then, see how crazy this is? So many things. So then she moves into corporate communication management and VP of operations. So again, another operations role. She's got HR under her, marketing. She manages creatives, accounting, warehouse. She moves the entire operation into a whole nother building. So she has like building management as well. And then more recently, she's been a director of sales and marketing, and then a marketing and operations and doing technology implementation, and earns an MBA in this latter part of her career. This is a lot. So if you're thinking, oh gosh, my story sounds really crazy and convoluted, this is what we were unraveling for Kayla. But what is missing from that hit list of what she has done in her career? It's the first part of career velocity. It's what are her unique differentiators beyond what you see on the page? And what is her leadership approach? How is she going to talk about herself? We're going to cover that now. So this is high level. We know what her Clifton strengths are and how she applies her talent. The second thing is we know what her values are and how it informs her decision making. And we unraveled her leadership approach in our first couple of conversations together. So then we were able to come up with kind of a one-pager where she now knows, what is she most known for? What are the sectors that she has experience in? What business and operations and functional oversight has she had? A lot. And then unique experience and differentiators. What's in Kayla's toolkit that might be different than someone that looks similar on paper? She has gone through acquisitions. She has managed risk and safety, all that warehouse stuff. That was like very serious stuff. She's had global and international experience, and she's managed creative teams, which a lot of her competitors may not have ever, and she's managed fleets. And then once we look at the snapshot, we know what her strengths are, we know what her values are, and we understand her leadership approach. And she is this close. I'm thinking this week we'll have an offer for a job that has been customized around her toolkit. It will not go to market, my friends. Okay, so why is storytelling so powerful in getting this career thread? You are going to find it easier to remember your stories. You will sound more authentic because it's the truth. And you will be focused on context and relevancy for your audience. If you don't do this, you will have a lot of misses. You'll be talking, and not reading the situation and what people need. So what I am hoping that you'll activate and do is go and do the self-reflection so that you can kind of figure out what is the why behind all of the career shifts that you've made. What has motivated you to get from job to job? And what skills have you accumulated? And what are all those touch points that could be interesting to that future listener? You're not going to say it all on the first go because you risk losing the audience. So you want to know what those highlights are when you go through the self-reflection process. And then you're going to work on that 3/3 framework. You can find my 3/3 framework. That's for another time. That's in chapter 5. What was happening in your early career? What was happening in your mid-career? And what's more recent, so that you can structure the tell me about yourself narrative and you don't wander through your story. Because rambling is one of the worst things that you can do, no matter if it's a referral, a good friend and colleague, or you're actually interviewing with a recruiter or hiring manager. So your career thread are the themes and patterns. In chapter 4 of Qualified Isn't Enough, I give you pages and pages of prompts to come up with your career data vault. We're not talking about the vault today, but that is your evidence. That is your proof. Those are your results. And you need to do that before you build the tell me about yourself narrative. So you're going to build your strengths and values, etc., your leadership approach, your career thread. That's what we're talking about today. Then step 4 is getting that career data vault together. So you know what they all are. They're a repository in one spot. And then you will build the tell me about yourself narrative. Okay, so we want you to move from qualified isn't enough, to compelling. What's compelling about you? If you are sitting in a room with 4 other people, or virtual room, interviewing for a job and you're all qualified to be there, what is it about you that throws it over the edge and you get the offer? What stories are not being told on that resume? What are you most known for? Why should people pick you? Okay, so before I go into the next slide, I'm going to go over to the questions. So thank you, Cynthia. I answered that one. Russ, my question is similar to Sheba. How do I identify and highlight my 2 to 4 sharpest tools? That is what I've created with Career Velocity, Russ. It is step by step coming up with layering out all of your tools first so you can see it for yourself. Then I kind of think of it as a Venn diagram. What are the overlapping circles of what it is that you can do best? And then you pull out the sharpest, most important ones, depending on who you're talking to. But if you start with the whole Venn diagram, you risk losing the audience. And I've seen it time and again. And that's why I'm talking about it with such zest. So you've got to identify how you help people the best. And then you need to lead with the jackknife or the corkscrew and save the fingernail file and the screwdriver for later. Okay. And then another question, how important is the LinkedIn profile being updated with details of the current previous job roles? Does it really make a difference? Yes. Huge. The LinkedIn has changed this year. It has gone from SEO, keyword search optimization, to geo. Now we're looking at that generative engine processing with LLMs, the way that we ask natural questions in ChatGPT and so on. If you don't have data on your LinkedIn profile that's in context to what you do and it all matches up throughout your profile, you will not rank high in recruiter searches. Again, that's a whole topic for another day. If you have an anemic profile, starting at the top with like not having a strong headline about what you do with the job titles, you will not rank highly. That is a very, very big deal. Let's see. Follow-up question to the degree problem, how to find the people to cold call or reach out otherwise. So Michael, again, that is a whole huge topic. We talk about the 2-hour job search twice in the Path to Next series. We don't have the video of Steve Dalton, but we do have the 2-hour job search where I'm walking through the book painstakingly. That is in the Intel Alumni Network previous events, Path to Next series, and look for the 2-hour job search and go watch that 1-hour video. In it, I talk about 2 formulas for holding informational conversations. And in chapter 8 of my book, I talk about these 2 frameworks as well. So, and finding those people comes from building a target list, tapping into dormant ties, and then trying to get referrals from people. Again, that's a whole huge topic. How do I use StrengthsFinder to tell my story or in my story? Okay, so Donna, what I don't recommend is just take StrengthsFinder and then think that language is the turnkey. It's in the integration and doing the reflection. Chapter 1 of my book gives you a coupon code, a discount code to take the UMAP profile, www.youmap, myumap.com, myyoumap.com, sorry. And when you take the UMAP, you get your top 5 strengths from StrengthsFinder, values assessment, motivated skills and burnout skills, and personality. 4 assessments in one. And I walk you through the micro of how to uncover the language behind that. I also coach on that as well. So, for people who are feeling like, wow, I really want someone to go on this journey with me and you're ready to invest in coaching, that's what I do. But it's in the book. Qualified isn't enough. Okay, I think we've tapped on that. We are getting close to the end. What I want to do is offer you all something, and I'm going to pull over some of these prompt questions too before we close out. I created a micro course, a nano course, and it is to help you avoid using job boards to find your next job. I have identified 5 strategies after talking to 7 leaders about how they landed jobs without using a job board. It happens to be in a series called How Your Next Executive Role Finds You. It is not just for executives. There are 5 strategies in here. There are 7 full interviews that you can download and a workbook. And because you're part of my Intel alum community, I have a discount code. If you go and find the nano course on my website, and I can drop the link in the chat, use IAN50 and you can get this for half off. It will help you think outside the box, and you will get ahead of your competitors if you're thinking about any of these 5 strategies. There are 3 Intel alums featured. This one's Jennifer Davis that you see here. Rob Hayes is a former alum, and Shantanu Gupta. Out of the 7 stories, they are also featured in this series. So please feel free to take advantage of that. Here's the book cover. Qualified isn't enough. Develop your story, land the interview, win the job. It's on Amazon. It's other places you can buy books. I'm at 43 5-star reviews, so I'm really proud of that, with no PR team behind it. So if you want my secret sauce, it's in this book. I held only a few things back for my private coaching clients, but my frameworks are in this book. So if you're tired of consuming tips and showing up to all these online things and going, okay, I got a couple good ideas, what do I do now? The ideas are in this book. It's my frameworks, not tips. Okay, let's see if there's any more questions. And then I want to just show you as well, that some of these things are actually listed in my book. So let's see. I took a Myers-Briggs, came up as an ISTJ. Can I use this to help develop the career thread? George, you can use the Myers-Briggs for some of that language. I discourage leading with personality assessment language. You get a personality assessment called the Holland within the UMAP, but Myers-Briggs, as much as I have loved it in the past, I've taken it multiple times. It's not necessarily statistically valid either. And so taking StrengthsFinder, it's been administered over 30 33 million times. You're 1 in 33 million when you look at your natural talents instead of your personality. So I strongly encourage you to look at either taking StrengthsFinder or just do the top 5 or do the UMAP using the coupon code that I have in chapter 1 of my book. So hopefully that's helpful. Let me see. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Here's the code to do that. I love personal connection requests because we all get pitch slaps all the time, so it's nice. I usually look at people's profiles and go, oh, former Intel alum, awesome, and I'll connect with you. I have a newsletter called Career Velocity on LinkedIn. You may want to subscribe to that. I have a series called What to Do When You've Been Laid Off, and I think I've got like 6 newsletters that you can go back and like look at all of the content there. Tons and tons of information. So please connect. We're stronger together. You want to be connected to professionals that will help you accelerate your job search. So you're 3 degrees closer by being connected to solid professionals with a solid network. So that's something that you may want to consider. I am going to stop sharing and just show you briefly some of the content in the book that you can take advantage of. Let's see. Okay. So this is a screenshot of what is in chapter 3 of my book, Finding Your Career Thread. So I literally show you, lay out your career story, gather your information. Here's all the things you might want to gather. Reflect on and type out your career journey. And then here, what was your life before college? What were you doing with your education choices? And then here's the cut and paste. You can go in here and build your bullet list of what you're going to answer for all the jobs you've ever had, so you can start to unravel your career story. So that's something that
intending
you
to
may
share
want to
that?
do. Pardon?
You intending to show that on screen?
Oh, I'm not showing. How's this, everyone? I'm so sorry. I was looking at it myself thinking, okay, this looks amazing. Okay, let's do this really quick again. Here's the 4-step process, gathering your information, everything I just went through with you all. Reflect and type out your journey, identify the themes and patterns, write your narrative. So here's how to, what you're going to gather. Here's the reflection exercises. This is probably page 57. This is my watermarked original copy, so I don't know what page it'll be now. My life before college, all the bullet points, what was happening when I was on my education journey. And then this is the list that I recommend that you type this out, cut and paste it over and over and over, and then start answering those questions for yourself so you can start to lay out the themes and patterns. Remember, this is step 3 to get to tell me about yourself, which is step 5 in the book, which is it builds and builds and builds to give you the whole picture. So again, if you want frameworks, I built frameworks. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the Q&A real quick before we kick it over to Howard and also tell you about my next, what I have in store for you for Path to Next. Let's see. I've taken StrengthsFinder in 08 and 15 and 24. You don't necessarily need to take StrengthsFinder again if you took it in 24. The nice thing about the UMAP is you get a more well-rounded view of all of you. The values that drive you are really important for your decision-making in this process. The skills that motivate you can be illuminating, like, this is what I love to do. And if I start targeting jobs where I have burnout skills, if I have to do that a lot of my job, then I might not be happy. So you may want to take a look at that. But the short answer, Russ, is no, you don't have to. Absolutely not. Where do we get info on Avoid the Job Board course and how long is it? My Nano course is short. I think the videos, I'm going to pull it up for you right now. The videos probably all take not even more than an hour to get through. Depending on how fast of a reader you are, I have the 7 articles, and then I have a workbook that you can download and take notes. All right, so I'm cutting and pasting and putting this in the chat, everybody, right now. Use IAN 50 and you get half off. And what I hope it does for you is it helps you think outside the box. You want to think better than your competition. Your competition is applying, and it's not working. You could do something different. Okay? All right, any other questions? I don't see any more. Path to Next, we're taking a break for December. And in January, I have Ellen Rame, who is a former alum who has specialized in helping Gen Zers make career transitions and also accelerate their career professionally when they start their first job. She has written a book. I cannot wait to have her on as a panelist. She and I are going to be talking about challenges Gen Z has specifically, what we all have in common, and how we can all accelerate in our job search. And for those of us like me, I have old Gen Zs, 23 and 25 years old. We are going to be learning from her if we're parenting people like this, in how we understand and help them navigate their early professional careers, because it's not the way we did it in the early 90s. I can tell you that. So join us on the second Wednesday in January. Put it on your calendar. We'll have invites out soon. Michael, is there anything else before I hand over to Howard?
I don't think so. I think we're good.
Okay.
Great job.
Thank you. Howard, you want to close us out?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Gina, again, for providing very, very effective, actionable insights to enhance the success of our participants' careers. We sincerely appreciate you sharing your time and expertise. For those of you who would like to review any of the great content from today, the recording of this session will be available later this week at the intelalumni.org/events page. When you visit our website, you will also see a contribute link at the far right on the top menu bar. If you value the programming like this Path to Next series, our recent Viking program, our thought leadership events, and many new programs in development that we have provided at no cost to our members, we respectfully ask that you consider making a non-tax deductible contribution to the Intel Alumni Network to enable us to continue to deliver this programming that you value. As we head into Thanksgiving and the end of the year holidays, as Michael indicated, this will be our last 2025 web event. For those alumni in Arizona, we have a new chapter kickoff event from 5 to 7 p.m. on November 18th at the Intel Acatilla 2 facility. Please see the intelalumni.org/events page for more details. For those of you in the Bay Area, we are currently looking at a December pop-up event. Stay tuned for more details as they are finalized. So with that, to both our attendees and Gina, thank you once again for your participation and your engagement today. Have a wonderful week.